facilitators that will be handling this training today. So we once again want to welcome each and every one of us to this program. The program, the training this morning is on managing compliance and legal risk. We just want to quickly intimate us with some of the things that you need to know concerning this training, which is holding virtually. The first thing is that your mic has been muted by default, and you only unmute when you are asked to do so. Probably you have a question to ask or observation, and in doing that, you need to indicate by raising your hand. And in the course of the presentation, the facilitator may decide to ask questions and seek your response just to ensure that you are flowing with her presentation. I would also like to let you know that at the end of the training, there will be a group photograph. So at that point, we'll urge you to please enable your video so that we can take the group photograph together. And then, of course, the training materials will be made available to you and your certificates of attendance. Having said that, permit me to quickly introduce the first facilitator for this morning before she comes up to make her presentation. Our first facilitator for this morning is the principal partner, J.O. Samuel and Associates, a firm of chartered secretaries, practitioners, legal practitioners, I beg your pardon, and also managing partner, Lewis Consulting, a firm of management consultants. She obtained her law degree from Obafemi Awolowo University and was called to the bar in 1991. She also holds an LLM from the University of Lagos. Our facilitator for this morning is a member of the Governing Council of ICSAN and has chaired several committees of council. She's the current chairman of Law Reform Committee of the Institute and a past chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the Institute. She's also an IFC certified trainer and a corporate governance board evaluator auditor. She belongs to other professional bodies such as the Institute of Management Consultants of Nigeria, IMCOM, Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, and Association of Outsourcing Professionals of Nigeria, and she's happily married with children. Distinguished participants, please join me as I welcome Mrs. Jacqueline Odiadi, FCIS, to make her presentation to us this morning. So we urge you to please pay attention and listen to her presentation. Mrs. Odiadi, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gigi, and good morning, fellow distinguished governance professionals. We are sorry about the lateness in starting off this program. We had issues with technical hitches, and it has been resolved. And I'm sure we'll try as much as possible to make up for lost time. Well, all that have been said about me, is in line with who I am and what I do. And that makes up my person as a lawyer, a governance professional, and as a human being, a member of the society. Without much ado, the topic given to me is actually more of a practical session. And I'm to take the topic on corporate governance and compliance, fundamental tips for practitioners. That is my name up there. Are we having a freeze? Whilst we are trying to sort out the system again, I would like the participants to please inbox your name and where you work. Inbox the chat box. Inbox your name and where you work. I want to have a feel of the different sectors that are here represented. Kindly inbox in the chat box the name and where you work. Can't hear anything, and I have checked my audio. Okay, some people can't hear. Folake Ogunaike, Infini Advisors, Legal Practitioners, Rosemary, Outsource Global Limited. Okay, there is someone in the outsourcing space. There's a lawyer, okay, and someone in the outsourcing space. Well, the session outline, we have Taiwo Ogudiro, Pumi Roberts and Co, another lawyer, okay. Oludolapo Animashan, okay. We have quite a number of lawyers here. So that's good to know. Our session outline is, well, we've started with introductions. We're going to have consideration of concepts, a business case for corporate governance and compliance, the modern company secretaries for governance professional. And then we're going to have a couple of case studies, even in the course of the presentation, and interactive session. It's going to be very, very interactive. And then we're going to wrap up. But let me tell you, fellow colleagues, I'm here to facilitate learning because I know that we're all professionals in our various fields. So we're going to have an interactive session where we're going to share knowledge, share experiences, and come up with a couple of resolutions on how to work our profession in a more professional way, given the modern times and the modern times that we are, the e-world. In some climes, we're already into the 5th industrial revolution. Whilst in Nigeria, I don't know where we are. Is it the 2nd or 3rd industrial revolution or 4th? We're still grappling. Nigeria is a hybrid of development in some areas, in some sectors, in some parts of the country, while some parts of the country are, some parts of the country are working assiduously to meet up with the 5th industrial revolution. Some are still maybe in the 2nd industrial revolution or agrarian era. So having said that, let's move on to the next slide. Let's move on to the next slide. This screen easy. Okay, we'll just, I'm glad my legal colleagues are here. You've gone too far. My legal colleagues are here, and one of the things, the basic knowledge we acquire at the law schools, like we're Boy Scouts, to be prepared. We have to make best use of any situation or circumstance that we find ourselves. We've jumped slides. Actually, from my own laptop, I will have a quote here, and please listen carefully whilst we try to sort out ourselves at this point. The corporate secretary of British Petroleum, David Jackson, he said, in today's world, the role of the corporate secretary has no one meaning. It has no one meaning and covers a multitude of tasks and responsibilities. That said, the role lies at the heart of governance systems of companies and is receiving ever greater focus. Now, how many, I haven't said that, we'll still put it up for you to see this quote, but basically the quote is saying that we are expected to be jack of all trade and master of all. But we are still regarded or referred to as company secretaries. So I would like to know how many of us participants actually work in-house as company secretaries? How many of us work in-house as company secretaries, or do you serve as an outsourced external company secretary? Please indicate by raising up your hands. Let's have an indication of how many of us actually practice as company secretaries. How many of us actually practice as company secretaries? Yes, Adeshayo, Adele, you have raised up your hand. You render service. Are you an in-house company secretary or an external company secretary? Adeshayo, Adele. And then we would like you to unmute. Let's have the contribution of two people. If you work as a company secretary, as an in-house company secretary, or render service as an external company secretary to a company, can we have two volunteers to tell us the kind of activities you carry out for your clients or for your organization? Just give us a range.
Okay, appears I've been unmuted now.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. This is Adeshayo.
Adeshayo, okay. Nice
okay, so
meeting you.
Same here, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm an in-house company secretary. And of course, there are other roles, but we're focusing on the company secretarial role for now. That involves coordinating the board meetings, attending the board meetings, taking minutes, documenting resolutions, filing if necessary. That's regulatory filings at the CAC. It also involves, board evaluation, ensuring that that's carried out, documentation of policies as prescribed under the NCCG. So there are policies the company needs to have in place. So we work on it, or we liaise with other teams to ensure these are drafted and approved by the board. Let's see. Okay, so on that company sector. Sorry?
Yes. But you mentioned other roles.
Yes, okay, so I'd indicated that I'm the head of legal and corporate services. Okay. So besides being the company secretary, I also perform legal advisory functions for the company, and then admin HR also sits under me. So it's not just being a company secretary. I'm the company secretary and head of legal and corporate services.
Thank you very much. Do we have another person to contribute to this discourse? If not, then you say, Adesha, would you say that that nomenclature, company secretary, best fits what you do?
It actually doesn't. I think it's restrictive because there's a whole lot of, when people hear company secretary, they just think it's about sitting down during the meeting and taking minutes. And that's just one, in fact, that's like the easiest of everything that, we get to do. So I don't think it's all encompassing. Doesn't adequately cover it.
Thank you very much for agreeing. Yes, that's the quote that that's the quote I earlier referred to. I hope we don't have a freeze anymore. So I just said, okay, I just said now, with somebody controlling it, will be controlling it. I just said, so as a company secretary in the house, let's have a discourse about what you do. And so it does not adequately the terminology or the description or the nomenclature company secretary does not adequately address what we do. So and that's why ICSAN as an institute and professionals, practitioners in the field, and some organizations are now advocating and canvassing and actually changing that nomenclature to governance professional. So you will have your first task to convince your board, your organization, that you are the governance executive of that organization, the governance executive of that organization, and not just the company secretary. Because what you do has gone way beyond company secretarial services, duties, and roles. And so, well, let's have, we will now consider some definition of concepts, just so before we go into the core of this presentation. Now the term corporate, well, of course, for those of us who are lawyers, I just assume that there will be non-lawyers amongst us. And also for the lawyers amongst us, this can serve as a as a refresher session. Corporate means legal identity or a legal person, not a human being, a legal person under the law. And then the governance has its roots in the Greek word gouverner, and it means to rule and to steer. To rule and to steer. And the definition of corporate governance, the short form, I tried to look up some very brief and concise definition of corporate governance. The most popular, of course, by Sir Andrew Carnegie, the system by which companies are directed and controlled. And from the Institute of Directors, South Africa, we have corporate governance means leadership, sustainability, and corporate citizenship. Now, all the world over, governments, institutions, financial institutions, all derived or try to draw their definition from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. And it's the European equivalent of the governance regulator for corporate entities and both public and private. So OECD, and if you check through all the definitions that's been articulated by various organizations, there's no one. There's so many definitions of corporate governance, but you see that they are all rooted in this very wide definition given by OECD, corporate governance. So we can go through that at our leisure. But however, corporate governance model adopted by any organization must ensure the distribution of rights and responsibilities of all participants. And we're talking about shareholders. Governance ensures that the organizations follow appropriate and transparent decision-making processes where the interests of everyone is taken into consideration. Stakeholders, shareholders, managers, employees, suppliers, customers, even the community, the states, the federal institutions, because they are stakeholders in terms of the tax element of our operations, for our clients and for our organizations. They are also stakeholders. And when we are talking about compliance, what is compliance? Compliance means following a set of rules. Following the set of rules as dictated by the sector in which the company operates. A set of guidelines that an organization is required to follow in accordance with the law, and that is compliance. And in some climes, compliance is regarded as the new corporate governance, or the frontier, the new frontier of corporate governance. Now, in the context of business, compliance operates at two levels: compliance with the external rules that are imposed upon an organization as a whole by regulatory authorities. And yes, in Nigeria, you know, we have SEC, we have Nigerian Stock Exchange, CAC, FIRS, a whole gamut of regulators that you need to now focus on the one that there are some commonalities. For example, Corporate Affairs Commission, everybody must interface with the Corporate Affairs Commission on a regular basis. But for your sector, there are sector-specific regulators. And so they impose regulations that you must comply with. You know, and then as a governance professional and as a company secretary, there are compliance with the internal systems of control that are imposed to achieve compliance with the externally imposed rules. So you are also expected to develop, to manage the process by which the company will ensure that they comply with the external expectations of regulators. Now, why company secretary? Why compliance? Why, you know, how did it come to be a front burner issue? Well, the first case study, Lehman Brothers, for those of us who are interested in history, who are interested in historical backgrounds of how all this came to be. We remember Lehman Brothers, it was the fourth US investment bank to collapse, affecting 26,000 employees, you know, people committing suicide. What happened? Subprime lending and large exposure to mortgage bank. You know, the popular mortgage banks at the time, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae, high-risk investment bank business models, accounting manipulation, hiding indebtedness of organization. You know, remember how the Enron financial books were manipulated to the extent that you know, Lehman, it affected everyone globally. In Japan, banks and insurers announced a combined 249 billion yen in potential losses. It was the largest bankruptcy filing in the world history, with $600 billion in assets. Well, all this led to the emergence of governance codes, the Cadbury Code of UK 1992, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of Sarbanes-Oxley of 2002 in the US, the King's Code of South Africa. We are now, you know, it's been reviewed periodically. The current one is King's Code 4. Then in Nigeria, we will discuss Nigerian scenario. Let me take that with Nigerian scenario. Okay, in Nigeria, initially there was this insular posturing that what was happening would not affect us, but eventually it did. You know, the banking reforms of 2006, 2008 led to the consolidation and recapitalization of banks. But what actually went wrong? Stock manipulation, We were hearing stories of, on ethical practices by some notable persons, manipulating the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Bank chiefs advanced huge loans for the purchase of tank farms. They invested in the oil and gas sector without understanding the business. The bankers doled out more cash for real estate again. And ignorance of the implication of the crisis, because the economists were coming up telling us, writing a lot of articles, publicly declaring that the country's financial system was isolated from the rest of the world. And of course, that wasn't the case. It led to a collapse of a number of institutions, and a number of institutions. And so we came out, then it led to a festival of, the impacts, yes. The Nigerian the stock market collapsed. Market capitalization was dived from an all-high of 13.5 trillion in March 2008 to less than 4.6 trillion in January 2009. Look at the rapidity and the extent. Liquidity crisis. The percentage of non-performing loans skyrocketed. Some banks collapsed from the scene. From the screen, you can see that some of these banks are no more. And can we say that things have actually changed? We still hear rumblings, but what has actually happened is that it is better managed or more controlled. Of recent, there were rumblings even with a first generation bank. And of recent, also we hear of people rushing to the bank to withdraw their money from one of these new generation banks, But what did we do in Nigeria? Every sector came up with their own codes. They came up with way to address the situation. There was a multiplicity of codes, and there was a multiplicity of codes, and then there was this confusion, because if you go to the insurance sector, they have their own insurance code, the financial services code, some even professional bodies were rushing to also not to be left out of the race. But eventually, it all culminated in the passing of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, which was worked on by our own professional body, ICSAN, and FIRS. Importance of corporate governance. So this is laying a background of why we are who we are, and we are who we are, what we are tasked to do, is for us to have an appreciation. And also because we are forever going to be advocating for review of better governance practices. As we say in the management consulting space, as the governance professional within the organization or rendering a service, you must always cannibalize your processes. You must always cannibalize your processes, and to see what improvement, when you break it down like a mechanic or like an engineer, one of what you need to do is to make a business case. Make a business case for corporate governance within your sector, within your organization, and to your clients if you're an external person. When we're talking about enhancing your business, long-term sustainability, better operations, financial performance, your credit ratings, and if you want to look for international partners, you need to work on your credit ratings, and they will look at your governance framework, governance processes, and all that. And it will enhance the opportunity, give you a leverage in attracting the kind of investor that you need for business growth and sustainability. You know, human risk, you know, when you talk about looking at, because you are, like we say, you have to interface with HR, the kind of personnel that is needed. If you are in the extractive industry, how to extract, you know, if you are, for instance, if your company is into the export of wood, you know, you have to talk about planting trees, you know. So all that, we will talk more about that in the course of presentation. So the business case, you know, it helps with succession planning. You are going to have this slide, I'm told. Our time slot is for till 11:30, and and I'm being assured that you're going to get this this slide, so you can look through it. But what I'm just trying to at this time is that you are going to be the ambassador for corporate governance, the apostle, the preacher, the pastor, the evangelist, you know, whatever, for corporate governance, and for your company and your clients to have a better appreciation of corporate governance and for corporate governance. You know, what is an organization's purpose? You know, it's at the bottom line is for organization, the success of the organization. And so, like I said, you know, the structure, what structure do you have in place? What are the policies you have in place? What are the procedures to ensure compliance? The people, this is just a graphic representation of what we have discussed, and addressing governance, and at the bottom line, organizational success. So for those of us, and I believe we're all charter secretaries here, so we are familiar with the pillars of corporate governance. You know, the corporate governance is a structure of rules, practices, and processes used to direct and manage a company. And the 6 elements, you know, that we want to refer to this morning to give a graphic representation of what we are discussing is, you know, like I said, at the bottom line is to advocate for strong commitment to corporate governance reforms. And how can we do that? We must imbibe good board practices, you know, appropriate control of the environment and processes, good citizenship, like I said, you know, your sector. If you are in the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, you are the in-house company secretary, or you render service for the pharmaceutical industry, you must know that you must have a close relation with NAFDAC, with the NDLEA, because you need some permits, so you can import some, you know, for example, when with the issue of the youth and codeine, the cough syrup that was banned, because that cough syrup, until NDLEA was now educated that cough syrup is out there in the market. It is the irresponsible application or usage of it that has led to the youth problem of drug abuse. So, you know, these are things that we need to be mindful of as company secretaries, as governance professionals, you know, so these are the consideration we must have, and be industry minded for our clients, for our organization. So like you can see, like I said, yes, my co-facilitator said when I asked her about what she does, you know, and she has told us a lot of things. The services she renders for our organization and the multiple roles she plays. Look at the modern company secretary or governance professional. You can see with her high heels, she has how many files on her head. So you know she's holding some on her lap. She has some on her head. There are others on her one foot, and she's balancing on one leg and multitasking. So the role of the governance practitioner, you know, ensures she or he is to ensure compliance with governance procedures, communicates between the board and management, that she or he is that bridge, you know, that bridge, that information bridge, communicates between the board and management, and manage shareholder relations and manages shareholders meetings. She is the conscience of the company, ensures compliance with laws and regulations, oversees, conducts induction training for newly elected directors, manages corporate governance framework for the organization, communicates with directors. She's an officer of the company, just not an ordinary officer, a high-ranking officer, executive officer of the company, but she can only be hired and fired by the board. So, as we say here, you know, at ICSAN, in ICSAN, we pride, when we're talking about ourselves, we call ourselves multi-skilled professional body. And we've been saying that for years, but now the reality has dawned on everyone, and for practitioners and for organizations, that the governance professional, the company secretary, must be a multi-skilled professional, because she'll be required to identifying what and advising why certain corporate governance best practices should be adopted by the organization. Like I said, in the extractive industry, you have to be environmentally minded, you know, in the service, in the operations, and in the community, and for good governance practice, implementing within the organization those best practices through through the creation and maintenance of culture and relationships, and then facilitating communication between the various stakeholders, as earlier said. And the soft skills, yes, the soft skills. I would like one or two people to share with us. Can you please unmute the participants? I want, we have a list of soft skills that a governance professional is expected to have. And I want one or two participants to share with us their experiences in applying this to a particular situation they've encountered in their places of work, or with a client, or within the organization. 2 participants, please, because of time. Soft skills, please indicate so that you can be unmuted. Respectful, diplomatic, and effective communication, active listening, bringing issues to the surface, especially those relating to reputational risk, describing common concerns and interests, generating alternative solutions, respecting confidences, appreciation of all parties, disagreeing constructively, emphasizing commercially minded approaches, which we'll hear with the next slide. But 2 people, can you share with us how you've applied these soft skills in conducting your various roles, and then carrying out your duties and responsibilities as a company secretary? Yes? Anybody? Are my participants still online?
Participants, you can please unmute yourself and respond to our facilitator. Thank you.
Yes, anyone?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Let me try this. My name is Hawa Idrisu. I think for me, in practice, a very essential issue is effective communication, to listen here, understand, and when you're giving advice, because the people you're working with or speaking to may not have your level of understanding, you have to be able to break it down in such a way that your information flows through and flows through respectfully, to avoid ego issues or ego problems. So you have to be respectful and diplomatic in the manner in which you communicate. For me, I'm a bit on the younger side, which makes it a tricky balance in the African society. So you have to walk a careful line, but there are times when you have to stand your ground, especially when the issues you're handling could cause reputational issues or risk towards the company that you're representing. Yes, then also disagreeing constructively, that you always have to support whatever it is that you're saying with facts, back it up with facts, and then it reduces the likelihood of you having problems. So I think that's my contribution.
Wonderful contribution at that. Thank you so much. Any other person? One more person? Any other person? Okay, so we go with Hawa, right? Am I right? Did I get the name right?
You got it right.
Okay, we'll go with Hawa. Yes, and I like the fact that she said to us that she's on the young side, so we have to also, consider and be mindful of the culture of where we work, our society, and our environment. You go to the first generation bank, they are usually not on first name basis. From the gateman to the MD to the chairman, it is Mr. or Alaji or Madam, or you go to that environment, you see people genuflecting, and when they want to talk to each other, they talk to each other in a cultural way. But when you go to a first generation bank, right? You can see the youngest worker calling the MD, "Oh, Kunle, good morning." He may say, Kunle, good morning, sir," but it's the culture of that environment to address your superiors on first name basis, right? So you need to be mindful of the culture of where you work. You need to be, as a matter of fact, because we are short of time, you must be emotionally intelligent. You must be mindful, have that, imbibe it, and know how to. You must think carefully before you talk, because you are managing, board of directors, they are there, they've arrived, as you will say in Nigeria, and there's a lot of ego management that you have to deal with. So you require a lot of soft skills to be able to manage this group of people, even the middle level managers, the officers, and your subordinates. Everyone, you must be, you must acquire these soft skills to be able to manage situations and different scenarios that come your way in the course of your carrying out your roles, duties, and your responsibilities. So, because you'll be surprised that not greeting a director properly may cause him to disapprove of maybe a new technical gadget that you require to carry out your work, because we're now in the e-era. You know, just because you spoke to him anyhow, he may say, no, we consider that at the next quarterly meeting. Just like that. And you have some deadlines. I know that if those issues are not addressed, if those the responsibilities are not carried out, you are going to be held responsible. You'll be on the hot seat. So you need a lot of soft skills to be able to carry out your duties, your roles, your responsibilities, you know, as a governance professional, as a company secretary. Did I hear a male voice trying to come up? Okay, like I said, the modern governance professional, we're now going into the tips, and we're talking about tips. The modern governance professional must be commercially minded or aware. Must be commercially minded or aware. To be commercially aware, a corporate secretary should be able to do the following: understand how their organization makes money and creates value. This will impact on your advisory role as a governance professional. You know, understand what the organization needs now and in the future to continue to make money and create value. Have a thorough understanding of their organization's competitive advantage. Keep up to date with the industry sector that their organization operates within. So a modern governance professional or company secretary must be commercially minded. That means when they're having a strategic session, you must be able to contribute meaningfully to the policy direction, business plan, contribute to what will make the company continue to sustain itself in all ramifications. Because when you come, if you must be a giver as well as a taker, because if you now come with personnel issues or review of salary, review of home take, and all they see is that you're just waiting for, you just do what you are told to do. There's no value add. There's no significant contribution or impact that you are making in the life of the organization. You can be, you know, you are not making yourself relevant. Then the signal will take off that we need a more dynamic, resourceful, value-added governance professional. So a modern company secretary must be commercially minded. Now, we'll consider some specific duties. We've said earlier the traditional role. The traditional role that we play is to prepare. It's to prepare for meetings, take minutes. You know, record minutes, file away minutes, and all that. But we're now with COVID-19. A lot of these meetings are held virtually, just like we're doing now. Before COVID-19, perhaps we'll all be in a place and be able to interact in person. But now we can just do our best and manage technology and interact as we're doing presently. Now, one of the things a company secretary is expected to have ready for board meetings are the board papers, and they can be as thick voluminous as encyclopedias. And we know that board of directors, even sometimes the board of directors have other concerns, and you need to be able to assist them to digest what needs to be discussed, what has to be discussed, and for you to be able to capture the resolutions of the meeting. So the new approach called which is called executive summary. The new approach is called the SEPTRA approach. And another thing you can also convince your board, your organization to put in place is to have a board portal. So it helps with the management of meetings before, during, and after. The SEPTRA approach is excuse me, just a minute. The purpose of the board papers is to inform or stimulate debate and to seek approval, which must be, seek approval, which must be properly captured and documented. Board papers should be clear and concise, be in understandable language, answer all of the questions that directors are likely to ask, and should not include organizational jargons and acronyms. The corporate secretary should ensure that there is standard format, length, and style issued for board papers. Some companies color code their papers yellow for finance, blue for legal, and so on. But you need to, like I said, the culture, there's no one size fits all, but you should have in place how you have the blue file, you have the yellow file, but everything now is stored online. It's now stored online, but you still need to organize yourself, So with something like maybe another session that ICSAM will have is e-governance professional. Now that we're talking about blockchain technology, and then we have to adapt our practice to this new technology that is making the waves. So the 2-page board paper or an executive summary of a report is the SEPTRA memo. And this is an acronym for situation. S for situation. Briefly describe the background of the issue. Briefly, T for target. Briefly describe the goal of the proposal. P for proposal. Briefly describe how you are going to achieve your goal. Then risk. We are going to talk more about risk with the next facilitator. Briefly describe the risk associated with doing or not doing the proposal. Describe the risk associated with doing or not doing the proposal. Then action, outline what action you want the board to take, and the responsible officer. So, the board portal is a web-based workspace. And when you have a workspace, this board portal in place, the directors can access board meeting materials online, connect with other board members online and discuss issues securely, find current policy documents, news items, articles, and more, conduct committee work privately and securely, vote on issues electronically and have their votes counted and recorded, download meeting dates and events to their own personal calendars, share files and post messages during conference call meetings. So this is the way to go. This is the new practice. This is for those organizations that can do it. But for the smaller organizations, you can still be family business, NGOs, you can still have your, have a workspace either on Google or other platforms that are secure. So like I said, we're also going e-governance professionals. So we must be able to move with the times and be more effective, more relevant, more efficient as governance professionals. Now, ABC of a productive meeting. So, so for you to be, for want of time, I would have wanted us to discuss the sector and the board portal. I want to know how many. I would like to know. Maybe you can put it in the chat box. Do you have a board portal, and how do you use it? So if there is time, we can consider it, or you can share that learning experience, that knowledge with your colleagues that are here. Yes, we have a board portal, and this is how we use it, and this is the advantage it has given us. Please inbox, use the chat box to share that experience and knowledge with us. Thank you. So, you should also, in respect of meetings as well, ABC of a productive meeting, aim for a specific result. In aiming for a specific result, you help the chairman keep people focused on the decision to be made. Especially when you have a board which is the ideal thing, where majority gets along. As you are discussing a particular issue, and you have 10 issues that you need a resolution of the board, for you to carry out some other assignments and other rules, and then somebody will bring up a gist, what happened at the golf course the weekend before, or the wedding of a colleague's son or daughter. So you must be able to help the chairman keep the people focused on decisions to be made at that meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, sir, enough of that golf course. Let's do that after the meeting. There will be meeting, there will be networking and interaction after the meeting. Please, can we I need 10 because of this, I need these resolutions for this and that, and this is the only meeting I can get it for me to be able to do that. Please, sir, can you help me put a stop to this golf course discussion, and let us move on. So, so then be positive, using and instead of, and, yes, we can do this, and we can also consider this alternative as well. This should be our plan B or plan C, because next board meeting is in 3 months' time. So let us have a plan B. This is what we like to do. However, in case this does not, the metrics does not all align, we can also do this. So this application of your emotional intelligence, then the C is to see, hear, feel, sensory data, read the temperature and body language of board members, and advise the chairman accordingly. No 2 board meetings are the same, because they can all come all relaxed one day, and the next board meeting you wonder what went wrong. It's more like a war zone, or more like the days of Russia and America Cold War. So you need to be sensitive to the temperature of the room. Also dovetail desires, help the chairman look for common ground and build consensus. Director A, yes, we agree. Yes, we are going to do as you have requested in October, because it's more aligned to our end of year activities. But right now, let us take on Director Hamza, because it will fit properly to what the delegation, the assignment that have been delegated to management, so that they can report it. If we do this now, it will affect the timeline for this. We should give a reason. So, you know, entertain short, and then the E is to entertain short and long-term objectives to help the chairman identify quick wins. So after board meetings, you know, these are ways to manage the board meetings. So after board meetings, there are things to be done: notify management, relevant personnel, comply with all the filings. Some filings must be done within 14 days, must be done within 21 days, update the annual board calendar, prepare draft minutes, you know, file a copy of the agenda, enter any minutes approved, and sign. I believe the secretariat took 15 minutes of my time, but I'll still try to wrap up within time. You know, so like this is another quote, an anonymous quote. Yes, for us governance professionals, after the great ones depart, not as in depart as in death, but depart after the board meeting and are eating their dinner, the secretary sits, getting thinner and thinner, racking his brain as he tries to report what she or he thinks that they thought they have taught. So it's to, you know, you need to think about that, and it's to put, you know, just to ease the tension, ease the learning process. So if you read it, if you reflect on this, it will bring smiles on your faces, because I know that you would have experienced one or two issues where, oh, really, you know, it was not well captured. So you now make it more concise, articulate it better, and then share it with the chairman, and if possible, share it with the director that raised the issue. That yes, you were saying this in the group, so but we need to really actually capture it in the minutes. So I've drafted it this way. You know, share it with the chairman. Now share it with the director, because it's going to see the minutes. It's going to see the minutes, and you can just contradict you at the next board. No, I never said that. What do you mean, Madam Secretary? How can you say what I did? You know, oh. So, you know, the way to do that is, you know, like I said, a lot of gist can come within serious discussion. So when you articulate, make it more concise, articulate it better, share it with the chairman, share it with the director that raised that issue, and then, you know, you can now include it in the minutes. So, you know, other roles, board composition, you have to advise. We're now looking at gender balance, skills, you know, the skills matrix, matrix or matrix, you know, potato and potato, tomato and tomatoes. So board composition. Do we have all lawyers? Do we need an engineer? Do we need somebody that is CSR inclined, that will help our good citizenship culture? Do we need a generational mix? You know, are they all young people who probably would be more concerned about ego? No, what I you know, or you need an older person that will be able to ease tension, or that will bring words of wisdom, that will bring experience, expertise. Do we need a technical person? So these are things, you know, if the members of the board are all nominating women or nominating men or nominating all from one particular sector, so you need to guide the board. Succession planning, you know, so the mix will also help with succession planning, because if they are all of the same generation and the capable hands all just leave at once, the company will be left in a limbo. So you need those who will grow and fill in those gaps. Conflict of interest issues, not all conflicts of interest issues are bad. You know, if the director's wife is an IT guru, or the director's son is a known blockchain expert, and you are looking into that, but you need to declare. And let the board, the company, make an informed judgment. Of course, the new thing, as expected, a compliance with the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 is board evaluation. Board evaluation. It must be done on a periodic basis. So you must also be able to facilitate. There are some modern things, you know, expected of the company secretary. Right now, you must be. We've talked about strategy. We are going to talk about risk. You are going to discuss risk with the next facilitator. So because of time, you are going to have the slide. You know, so you assist. The professional must be able to assist with reviewing the vision, mission, and values of the organization. Be involved in the process of strategy session and review. And key performance indicators. We've talked a lot about good citizenship. The risk management. A black swan. When you see a swan most times is white. So when we talk about black swan, we're talking about an outlier, something that is unexpected, is not within the imagination of the decision-making organ of the company that can happen. Now, pre-COVID, nobody expected COVID to impact business the way it did. It impacted it both negatively, mostly negatively, but for those who were able to adjust quickly, and then some people actually were praying that COVID should not stop, should not end, or the lockdown should not end. Not that COVID should not end, but that lockdown should not end. So can we have just one person discuss with us what kind of unexpected risk the organization faced, and how they managed it, and how they were able to pull through it? Such in management, in governance, it is called the outlier, the black swan. So and the descriptive nature of this unexpected occurrence was given by Nassim M. Taleb, a staff of the World Bank Organization, International Finance Corporation, IFC. So can the participant be muted and talk about, share experience with us on how, if they've ever experienced an outlier event, a black swan event, and how they were able to manage the process. Hello? Hello?
Participants, please unmute and make your contribution.
Hello, are my participants still there? My co-facilitators, okay, let me see, let me call on someone. I'll call on someone, how they've been able to manage a risk, or if they have a risk management process. With Franklin Oko there, Hakeem Ashiru, Yabo Shola Olorunfemi, Oluseun Odubela.
I'm here, please.
Okay.
Good
Who's
morning, Mrs. Odiaji. This is Yabosola Olorunfemi.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Olorunfemi, please, can you, where do you work? Please, can we know a bit about you?
Okay, yes. My name is Yabosola Olorunfemi. I work with Mandilas Group Limited. I'm the legal advisor, company secretary, and new business development manager. So it's a three-role combined. Yes. So basically, yes.
So they should stop calling you company secretary. They should call you a governance executive, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, and really, I'm actually very much in tune with the direction of the institute, to actually look at that, because it goes beyond exactly what people think, as a company secretary. It's a lot more, all-encompassing and really detailed. Organizing board meetings and taking minutes is just a tip of the iceberg based on the role as is. It's a lot more than that, if you ask me.
Yes. Yeah. So have you experienced the question we're trying to address right now is, have you faced, share with us something that happened that was not within the contemplation of the organization, an event, a risky, do you have a risk management process? What happened and how did you attend to that?
Well, yes. I would expect that in all that organization, there will be a risk management process, particularly to actually ensure that before you go into, let me take it again from the, so I'll be answering this question from a mix of the new business developments aspect of my role and company secretarial as well. So basically, before you actually delve into any kind of projects or get anything done, you would actually be able to identify those risks and how to actually mitigate against those risks in order to minimize your exposure at every point in time. And because it's an unforeseen situation that, of course, it's not within your regular expectation, it has to be planned for. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, we planned for, but right now, as I sit off the top of my head, I'm trying to see, a situation where such risk did come up and how we were able to mitigate it. I will need to have a think through on that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for your contribution. And can someone share with us if they've had the situation? Okay, share with us how you survived the COVID period, the lockdown, and yeah. Can someone share with us how they survived the COVID period, or what adjustments they had to make during the COVID period?
The pandemic, sets in a lot of realities that most companies didn't really prepare for. So that was a risk, and of course there were some companies, yes, had such contingency plans in place prior to where they had flexi working hours, but there were some companies who were so rooted and, grounded into the fact that if you're not at work, nothing gets done. But with the COVID, it gave a different perspective to how things could actually get done. And for us particularly, we had to live up to that expectation, particularly putting technology in place, ensuring that it's up to date and, people can actually work remotely and get things done in order to actually get the business going. Of course, it was a global impact on all the businesses particularly, but mitigating it was basically the key action, so we had to step up the technology need, particularly to ensure that we can actually work remotely without any form of glitch, a setback in the business. We had to minimize cost as well and spend, particularly. We had to manage in terms of the budget that we had for that particular year. Yeah, so yeah, and a lot more, yeah, particularly those were the major changes and things that we had to adhere to and readjust to particularly, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing with us. And I thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Well, if you still want to share what you had to do, the adjustments you had to make during the pandemic, during the COVID lockdown, you can put it in the chat box. And I want to thank those who have responded through the chat box about how the app they use for their board for the board portal, Govenda also. The essence of also having this session is for us to network. If somebody has shared something that you find interesting, you can also just try to connect with such a person. And outside of this session, we can continue the discussions and interaction. So, like I said, Mr. Omolegbon, the next facilitator, is going to talk to us about how we're going to, as company secretaries, manage risk in our operations. So, because it's to 12 already. But you can read the bit I have written, I have put up for us to share. The bottom line is that the company secretary typically will have the responsibility to assist the board in meeting its responsibilities with regard to risk management. Corporate citizenship, we have discussed a lot about that in the course of this session, but in the light of for corporate governance, for the purposes of corporate governance, an organization should develop an ethical approach to conducting business, usually reflected in the code of ethics, ethical business principles, and so on. But I want to ask a question. We can respond in the chat box. Can we really codify all that needs to be codified in terms of good corporate citizenship or corporate governance or ethical conduct? Let's have a vote. Can we really codify all or things with regards to ethics, governance, compliance, ethical conduct, corporate citizenship? Is it possible to codify all that needs to be codified? Yes or no? Put it in the chat box. Let us see your responses. So where we have two case studies, Volkswagen is a case of bad corporate governance practice, and Pepsi company is a case of good corporate governance practice. I think my time is up, but we'll try and round up. So Volkswagen, tried to hide the emission issues of their vehicle, but it was the issue was leaked out. They were involved in bribery scandal. Volkswagen of Germany, and this impacted negatively on the company. And then Pepsi is a case study of an organization that should be applauded for consistent good corporate governance practice. And in terms of board composition, they have a long strategy, corporate purpose, and they have spelled out sustainability procedures and handbook You know, we only hear of, they say bad news travel fast. When the issue of First Bank came up recently, no, I try to, I don't know if I'm a gender advocate, but I don't know if I'm a feminist as a feminist, but the chairman of, or chairperson of the board of First Bank is someone I've always admired greatly, and how this lady was rubbished by some influential people, you know, it still baffles me. So, you know, bad news travel fast. And then there are a couple of rumblings in the financial services sector. And I hope that the regulators will move in quickly before we have a large scale disruption of private lives. Well, wrap up. The law of governance, risk management. I'll need my technical team to please come in, Mr. Gigi. The law of governance, risk management, and compliance is the body of rules, regulations, and best practices that individually and collectively are intended to ensure that organizations are managed effectively and in such a way as to enhance social welfare. You know, social welfare. In my personal introduction, that was skipped. I'm also a community development advocate on women, on gender and education. So, and then let us, you know, let us end by what the former US Deputy Attorney General Paul McNulty said about compliance. If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. We have clients now who says they have zero tolerance for fines, for late filings. You know, there are new registers. You know, this session is not exhaustive of what a modern governance professional, you know, is faced with or needs to undertake in the course of carrying out their roles and responsibilities. You know, you must have another, you know, one of the registers you need to have and manage is the risk register. You must develop a, you know, a heat map for managing your risk and all that. So there are so many registers and other than the statutory documents that are listed that you need to have, and how to manage them and how to make them e-compliant. So these are the things you know, and it's an ongoing process, and there is no one size fits all for any organization. That is why both the in-house and the external law firm or governance professional must work in tandem to ensure this, to ensure the sustainable growth of the organization. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to take questions, contributions, and comments. Like I said when I started, I'm here to facilitate learning. I've not really said anything that you're not familiar with. Maybe I've said it in a different way, or perhaps you do it in a different way. But I hope that we have been able to learn from each other. I have learned from you, and I hope you've been able to learn from me as well. Thank you. And I await your comments and contributions and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Milaya Ogunjobi said, during the lockdown in my organization, a risk department was set up. Some allowances were reduced without sacking any staff. Most staff were on rotation off duty. Staff buses were increased to facilitate transportation of staff and reduce use of public transport that may generate risk of COVID. Thank you for that contribution. So I await your comments and your contributions and questions. Thank you. Mr. Gigi.
Thank you, Mrs. Sodiadi. Thank you for that in-depth and well-researched presentation. Thank you very much. Participants, please let's feel free. Let us ask questions. Let us share experiences so that we can learn from one another. Let's share experiences. Let's make comments. Okay, Jane Akpan is raising her hand. Please go ahead with your question or contribution. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Madam, for your presentation. It was a very detailed one. Thank you very much. But I have a question. Your presentation seems to put all the responsibility of compliance on the corporate governance professional in the organization. Now, hello, are you here with me, ma'am?
Yes, yes, I'm listening.
Now remember that most of the in-house or external professionals would also work with the regulatory bodies. Apart from maintaining the statutory books and doing all the complying in-house, you remember that most of us will still go back to the regulatory bodies to comply as well. So to an extent, I feel that even though the professional want to comply and fulfill discharge their obligations, as you have stated, I still think that the regulatory bodies themselves have a role to play. I'm saying this because we all know how these bodies operate in Nigeria. They are not private organizations that are moved by making profit. So even doing anything with most of them, some of them need to cut corners. The timeline they give you, for instance, of recent, it's just CAC, I am aware, CAC and Nigerian Export Promotion Council, who has started online registration, and then you get the certificate online without even having to go physically to the body, without any itches, just CAC and NEPC. I'm saying this because even when we want to play our roles and discharge our obligations in-house, in the organization, the regulatory bodies will also have a function to play. They have so much shortcomings, the delays, timelines are not met. Some of them frustrate you. I'm saying that then I have a case scenario. There's a company where we used to sit as company secretary. It's called Delhi Foods Nigeria Limited. Man, that company, they shut down today. Delhi Food had a no bribe policy. They had a no bribe policy. And this no bribe policy affected their business in so many ways. They recorded losses consistently for years until the business had to shut down. Over 300, the workforce employees, they lost their jobs because they couldn't record any form of profit. No matter how the company tried to comply with all the regulatory bodies and do almost everything according to their best practices, they still had so many challenges. So to an extent, regulatory bodies still have a role to play to assist the corporate governance professional in fulfilling and discharging their obligations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I will say this to you. Okay, is there another question? Oh, but let me respond to this first. Thank you very much. If you have been following the recent activities of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, you would know that, or you will realize that we are now trying to focus on the public sector. They are regulators and regulating us on corporate governance and compliance issues, but they are not imbibing the principles and tenets of corporate governance. So we are embarking on a lot of advocacy visits. The immediate past, the present president, and the secretariat, they are working and trying to interface a lot with the public sector. So there are lots of, so as the private sector have imbibed, the private sector organizations have imbibed the tenants and are applying the principles, we expect that our regulators will also do the same. You know, you cannot be a noisemaker and say other person should keep quiet. So that is what ICSAN is doing right now. We are doing a lot of work, having a series of meetings, inviting them for our programs, for our training, trying to get their top executives to be members of the institute and why they need to do that. So I can only say I feel your pain. We are all going through it, but hang in there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, any question, comments?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Participants, please, any other question, comment, observation, contribution to this topic? You want to share an experience?
Question, or I have a comment.
Do you have anybody?
Yes,
Yes, there's somebody with a comment.
My question is centered around companies that are privately held as opposed to PLCs. Now, we know that corporate governance is important for the success of an organization, but then that is us as professionals. In privately held companies, especially the smaller ones, getting the owners of a company to see the importance of this and the importance of implementation of certain corporate governance practices is not always so easy, even in terms of how they are structured, because most of them, smaller businesses, MSMEs, tend to even be family-owned businesses. So trying to implement all these things is not always so easy. So what is the best approach and what is the advice you can give concerning that? That's my question.
Thank you. There is a slide where I said we should make a business case for corporate governance. You know, one thing, yes, I think we need to build trust. I think privately held companies actually desire to leave a legacy. Maybe you start by that, telling them if you want to leave a legacy, if you want to leave a legacy for your children and your children's children yet unborn, the way to do that is to imbibe the tenets, the principles of corporate governance. Now okay, let me see if I can, making a business case for corporate governance. So sustainability is key. Yes. So you know, and if they want to grow, yeah, it's a slow grinding process, because the private sector they think of the cost and of putting up governance structures, putting in place governance structures. So it discourages them to do that. But you just try to convince them, make a business case for it. If they want to grow like the few private organizations that that have survived long term, something like Eleganza, some other very few Nigerian companies that have successfully passed it to the next generation. You know, you must continue to find ways to convince them that this is the only way you can grow your business. This is the only way it can have a long-lasting legacy that will survive you. A legacy is something that survives you anyway. A legacy for your children and children's children yet unborn. Well, actually, it's also it's not because they don't also appreciate it. But because there is lack of trust, you know, you discuss a business deal with somebody, and then he goes behind you to execute it. So I think there's for those who are of the Christian faith, we tend to take Esau-like decisions when it comes to business decisions. You know, people. What I mean by that for non-faith, non-Christians, is that we take as decision based on well, as a past governor will say, stomach infrastructure. We just think of the now, what we can grab now. We are not ready to go hungry for what we can get tomorrow or the possibility of tomorrow. We are not ready to starve ourselves. We just want the low-hanging fruits. This is what I see. Let me grab it. What can I invest? You know, so I think we just must continue to make a business case for corporate governance, and eventually, by and by, we hope that more privately owned. That is why we as an institute were a bit concerned that you know, the newcomer has defined that, has stated that small companies, there's no need for small companies to have company secretary. It's taken us how many years back based on what we have done. No, but I think that was sacrificed on the altar of foreign direct investment to encourage foreign direct investment into Nigeria, and so that people can participate more in and be able to source for investors better. But then investors will still come back and look at your governance structures for them to really partner with you. And if you don't imbibe or set in place your governance structures, you will remain small. You will remain small. But then, you know, is to look out. One of the things we should also do is probably as an institute is to see how we can assist in some collaboration for small companies who are in the same sector to bring their resources together and execute some projects jointly and then share the spoils. And in the process, having done that a couple of times, is a service. Well, you know, it's not known for the institute to do that, but like I said, I'm also a management consultant. So sometimes, you know, I have had cause to act as the paymaster. Then, when we do this business, who do we know that we can entrust with the proceeds, and who will ensure that the money is distributed as agreed? So I've had cause to be the paymaster for joint projects because they have trust that their money will not run away. So, and then they've been able to take on bigger projects where they've been able to execute that. So we have cultural issues, we have trust issues, integrity issues. Our concept of what integrity is far off the mark, I must say. But it is not impossible for you to find somebody you can collaborate with. And then they now, perhaps now they can now begin to have a partnership of like minds and have a better structure. Thank you.